Well, welcome everybody to today's Lunch and Learn. Today our topic is writing online and is brought to you by Pat Wagner. Pat is coming to us from Denver, Colorado. She and her husband run a business called Pattern Research, and she has been in the business for many, many years. She advises, she teaches, and she is an excellent writer. So she is going to be giving you some really great writing online tips and information about that today. So, Pat, take it away.
Great, Kim. Thank you. And thank you, folks, for joining us today. I'm a big fan of DoSpace. And if you don't already know, it's a unique organization. I've only seen one other group that even comes close to doing what DoSpace does. So I have to do this, and I'm not paid to do this, but a community technology library dedicated to empowering our community through access to technology and innovative learning experiences. And my background has a lot to do with writing. In fact, out of college, I was a professional writer and I've done all kinds of writing. And this is not to brag that I'm superior. It's just to make the point that there's lots of different ways that we apply that tool of writing, including since the invention of electricity in the year 2000, writing online. And my husband and I were part of an experiment from the it was from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, and it was called the Electronic Information Exchange System, or EYES, in 1976. So that's how long I've been writing online, instructional design, blogs, all sorts of different things. And everything you write for is different. So I'm going to be combining old school and new school information. The images that you're going to be seeing are from a site called pixabay.com that offers free images in the public domain. We support them and we hope that you do too. So this is the key idea. In fact, once you know this, no matter how good a writer you are, you're going to be a better writer, regardless of the platform, including writing online. And I'm going to read it out loud. That's how important it is. A specific target audience, knowing who you're writing for, as focused as you can be, and a well-defined goal of why you're writing, what you hope to accomplish. That's what just helps you decide what you're going to be writing and how you're going to be writing online. And when I teach classes on writing, and when I was a college instructor, I would emphasize this over and over again. Someone would hand me a piece of work and I said, who's the target audience? Someone would talk about what they were writing and I say, why are you doing this? And stuff. So this is the main idea for the program today. Second, we're talking about technology, and we need to know what the platform, what the application, what the site we're doing, what is its strengths and weaknesses, what does it do best? And we have to talk a little bit about images, which we will in a minute. But is this a site like Twitter where people can scan hundreds of tweets in a short period of time? So the rule of thumb is if you are running a business or you're trying to promote a cause or a nonprofit or something, it's not out of the ordinary for people to post 10 or 20 times a day and post the same information over time, because people kind of step into the stream and step out. And the whole thing with hashtags are very important as well. That's different from how you post on, say, something like LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook on stuff. So you want to know your platform, what it's best for, and what the weaknesses are. So you don't get trapped into writing for something where it's really, to be honest, a waste of your time. And again, since we have all these amazing tools, everyone's a photographer. Everybody shoots videos. Everybody takes images and photoshops them and reworks them. Some people who are entering online communication have kind of neglected their writing skills, or they don't think that's important. And I'm one of those people who entered the stream, as it were, with pretty good writing skills and had to learn to adopt new ways of doing things. But the truth is that I use images, even though they're important, as a secondary way to engage people. I really, when I'm writing online, I have reasons I'm writing online, and images are part of that, but it's not the main thing that I'm doing. And so you're stuck with my bias today about stuff. Several things we hope happen that are inspired today. Perhaps you tweak your ability to do that thing of identify goals and audiences online. Okay. You'll be hearing that earworm in your head for the rest of your life, and really thinking about those people you're trying to engage with. Is it the people you work for? Is it have to do with your school life? Is it about furthering your career? What I'm not going to be talking about today is just writing for personal entertainment, which we all do online, and all the little taps on the shoulder and the fun that we have with friends and family. I love being online and being able to communicate with virtually all of my relatives from both sides of my family. It means a lot to me because I'm from an immigrant family and I have people spread out all over the world. So it's really cool that I can keep in touch with my cousin Brenda in Japan and all my cousins in Canada and all the folks who are in Europe and South America. That's pretty cool. Um, but what is it that we want from people in those relationships? When you have impossible deadlines, and for some reason those deadlines are connected with what you're doing online, maybe a couple of tricks of what people who are in tough deadlines do. I think the toughest deadlines I've ever had was working in radio news, where your deadlines come and you're measured by a hundredth of a second whether or not you're hitting your mark. And the deadlines are like someone hands you a piece of copy or something that you need to write about, and you're going to be live in 15 or 10 minutes. How do you write for those situations? Thinking about jobs and careers, and everybody I know in this era of the pandemic is uncertain. No matter what kind of job they have or what their career has been before, everyone is uncertain. So I tell people that regardless how stable you think your current position is, everyone should be thinking about their next gig. It's something I learned in theater. We always should be thinking about that next opportunity. And in a way, everything you do online is an audition for the next gig that you have. And you can't assume people will always remember you. I was very pleased. I got a substantial contract about 2 years ago from a client who happened to be browsing LinkedIn. This is someone I had worked out with before from another state, someone who I knew. We had good rapport. She had a project to do that really did fit what I do very well, and she had forgotten me. And it wasn't until she saw me pop up with a post on LinkedIn that she went, "Oh, Pat would be great for that." And I got the contract about things. So being self-employed as a contractor, I am always auditioning for new things. But I tell people who are job hunting or don't think they need a job right away, don't wait. Don't wait. Be always thinking about that. And then the whole thing of being influential. Well, we can talk about politics, but I'm not going to go there. But what I will say that sometimes there's a cause or something that we feel very strongly about, and we want to share our passion with other people and maybe even influence their thinking or get them to decide it's a cause that they're interested in too. Well, before you can do that, people have to like you and trust you and respect you. Has nothing to do with the cause, happens to do with you as a person. So you have to think, how am I presenting myself and my ideas online? And I'm very proud of the fact that if you looked at, for example, on my Facebook account, I have about 1,200 people on my Facebook account who follow me, from family and close friends to people I don't really know, but are people who have been to my classes or something like that. And they completely span the political spectrum from the left to the right. And I get such a kick out of posting something about something that's important to me and seeing people engaged in conversation. And I know who they are, and I know how different they are. And I know that if we were at Sunday dinner there, all would be yelling at each other about philosophy and politics and important ideas. But I've tried to create a safe haven online where the kinds of things I really think about, the kinds of things I post, so that people feel safe. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to stop by and see what Pat's promoting, and they don't feel turned off. I'm proud of the fact people rarely unfriend me and rarely feel like they don't want to have anything to do with me, and feel comfortable even if there's disagreement among people in the timeline. So I believe that influence in online interactions does not go to the person who shouts the loudest, but the person who treats people with the same courtesy they would be if you were at someone's backyard for a barbecue talking to a stranger about a new idea. And they're more likely to listen to you if you're polite to them than if you're standing on your soapbox raging against whatever it is that you rage against. So we'll talk about, first of all, this idea of how online communication can further your career. I'm going to assume again that people are here because they're interested in purpose. That whole idea of starting with an outline, which helps you look at your goals and also your priorities, even when you're writing a small piece. Knowing your audience, and that has a lot to do with what we call style. How I write, for example, when I'm writing a nonfiction article on how to do something for a professional journal, I use a different style than if I was writing about food and cooking for a popular magazine. You know, vocabulary, structure, formal, informal, exactly. That whole idea of writing and rewriting and leaving time for editing. I've taught a lot online and I've taught courses, and you can always tell after a while of the people who are just treating online writing for a college class like stream of consciousness, and the people who've spent a few minutes writing something on their computer, maybe looking at it, maybe even sleeping on it overnight and taking another look before they post it. And it's the same way when I was a college instructor, I could always tell, and I talked to other instructors and they said, yes, you figure out pretty soon who has written that particular piece on their laptop on the bus on the way to class, and who are the people who actually put some time and thought into it as well. And then resources. And I'm very pleased because I think I came up with a terrific list of free resources for people for improving their writing. So let's get on with it. First of all, this idea of furthering your career, that you have a purpose to be writing online. And how does that happen? What do I mean that we can further the career? Well, first of all, you're creating online a virtual persona. Is your virtual persona well put together? Is it intelligent? Is it articulate? Is it friendly and welcoming? Is it good humored? Does it have its sense of humor about itself? Or is it snarky, sarcastic, ironic? Does it think that being good online means being someone who imitates one of those late night talk show hosts, or those really smarmy reality shows with people? I mean, goodness, I mean, what's that about? When I'm queen, I'm taking care of that. But what you're doing in effect is establishing an online reputation. And I know it's working when I attract new people, and people who've been following me for a while will comment publicly or privately saying, I always love the stuff you post. I really like it. And I know if someone's complimenting me, that means probably some other people feel that way as well. So it's just like when you enter a room and there are a bunch of people in the room who are maybe your instructors, your teachers, maybe people who are your current bosses, people who might hire you in the future. You want to be, as my mom would say, well put together. So how are you establishing that online? And everything counts. The other thing, you reliably get what you want most of the time. And the best way that I check on that is on the what they call I think it's called hyper local, but it's the Nextdoor application that focuses on what's happening in people's neighborhoods. And because there's some people on that who are not very nice to other people, I just want to be the best person when I'm on that. And it's totally self-serving. But because of being a positive, nice, friendly, neutral person who tries to help other people, when I need help, my goodness, I asked for help on something I needed, and I'm not exaggerating. Within a few minutes, there were 20 people who stepped forward to say, we can help Pat. And I think part of that is because of how I present myself online. And again, you're auditioning for the job you want. How are you presenting yourself online as someone who's trustworthy, who's intelligent, who doesn't just hit the return button because you saw something that was immensely provocative, particularly provocative about someone you don't like, and like, I can share with my fellow travelers that I dislike this person. Aren't I clever? um, if that's the way you present yourself, then I don't know if people are going to pay much attention. In fact, I can't tell you how many times, not just me, but other people I know have seen a friend post something online and we immediately private message them and say, oh, please take that down right now, because you don't know how much you're humiliating yourself. In fact, I was involved with a situation last year at one of my clients, and somebody who shouldn't have known better, and a member of the executive team of the institution, posted a really nasty, snarky comment online. Well, this is America, and you can say what you want, but the thing is, there's consequences to what you say. And she said something she shouldn't have. She figured it out and took it down after an hour, but people had already seen it and copied it and saved it and forwarded it to the leadership of the institution she worked for. And because of her position, she had to experience disciplinary action. And I was in the meeting and she was saying, well, other people do that. And it's like, yeah, but you're a vice president. You know, you should really know better than doing that. And I know that that has hurt her ability ever to get a promotion at that organization. It was so childish. It really she lost the trust and respect of the people that she works for. On the other hand, she could have handled it differently, and someone might have said, boy, that's someone who we might want to hire someday. And remember, increasingly, it's the majority now of people who are vetting candidates for positions. Where do they look first? They look at social media, particularly LinkedIn, number one, but they look at Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the other places to see how people conduct themselves online. And it's basically a character test. So when we're doing stuff, I tell people, remember why we're doing this. We're not doing this to be clever. We're not doing this just to get hits. We're doing this to maybe build paying customers for our business. We're doing this to engage other people in our class and present to our instructor or teacher that we know the material well. I mean, why are we doing what we're doing? And that's something in my classes on writing. When I'm looking at someone's piece, I ask over and over again, now, why did you write this? What did you have happen? I don't think that kind of unconscious response to online writing, which is so seductive, is the best thing for anybody's career or their school experience or how they deal with their neighbors and friends and families. I want us to have a pause button and be more conscious of what we post and why. So when we talk about this, I'm putting all of what we're doing today under that umbrella of workplace postings. This isn't just me sending a new recipe to my cousin Michelle in Alabama, where we were exchanging some family recipes the other day. No, this is about me thinking of myself, of a professional in the workplace, and how I want to be viewed and how I want to engage people as well. So even online with 240 characters, workplace postings are going to be a little bit more formal and no profanity. And I'm going to sound like mom. I don't care what the other kids are doing. I never ever use swear words. I never use swear words. Isn't that old fashioned of me online? Because they lose their ability to impress people after a while. You undermine their ability to say something that you feel strongly about. And turning them into common currency basically reduces their power. Same thing with slang, and I don't care what the other kids are doing. So, in effect, I want people to pretend they're an adult. And I had one woman in England I was corresponding with because I was part of a writers group she was involved with, and we've made friends about 3 years ago because I was so impressed with her writing. And I told her that, and I told her, no, I'm not stalking you. And this is who I am in real life, hiding behind my avatar as she was. And I come to find out she's 16 years old. Well, she didn't write like any 16-year-old that I had met for a long time. She was articulate, she was interesting and everything. And it won't surprise you, she's now at a very prestigious English university, studying to be a creative writer. I mean, she's already there as far as I'm concerned. If you're doing things professionally, watch out for acronyms if you're trying to reach a larger audience. No personal attacks on people when you're talking about politics, philosophy, or whatever. You deal with the facts. I really don't like all the clever negative things people say about different political opponents. If you use that, you lose credibility with me. And I know you lose credibility with other people of character. And remember, just like that lady who had the unfortunate incident, the vice president with her company, nothing that you write should ever hurt your own reputation or the reputation of your workplace. If you have problems, serious problems with the place you work, you deal with that. But putting stuff online is not a first resort, it's a last resort after you've done every other possible thing to remedy the situation. Okay? Promise? Thank you. Um, Now, this again is very old school, but when people are talking about their writing online, one thing that's interesting to me is what do they read? Reading builds your written vocabulary. And some people read pop novels that are really, really well written. I have no problem with that. But if the only thing you're writing is reading rather is other people's online posts, well, that maybe isn't giving you the breadth that you need. And yeah, for me, very old school, it does bother me that the studies that have been done on people's vocabularies through the years, it's diminishing. So the vocabulary of a 16-year-old in 1950 is much greater than, say, a 16-year-old today. That doesn't make me happy. So I want you to be a better writer, and that means that you read a lot and that you write longer pieces as well, not just that one paragraph, but you really practice writing something, for example, on a blog or an attachment of some kind. And even uh, places where you are only supposed to write little places, there's possibilities to do attachments and stories and things like that. I think learning to write both short and long actually works different parts of your brain. I know that's silly, but that's my personal opinion. So if you're just writing little pieces, find opportunities to write longer pieces. And when I say longer pieces, I'm talking at least 1,000-word piece. Find a place where that's appropriate. And that usually has to do with a personal or professional blog. Here's some homework having to do with people you know. And whether you're in a workplace or a university, or just talking about friends and neighbors, think of some people you like and respect who have done well in their career and ask them about if they believe writing contributed to that and how it contributed to their career advancement. And I think you'll get some really good messages from people. This is an exercise I do when I'm teaching classes in writing, and the students then report back and they say, wow, they never realized before how much writing took part in that person's career or academic success. So interesting. And it's an interesting conversation to have with people as well. So here's something, and you can post, and we're going to leave time to look at questions at the end. But what's something that you find difficult about writing online? What is it that you find difficult? And we'll see, and I'll check in with Kim. We'll see if we have any comments come in the chat box about that to see if anyone has any comments. But what is one thing or two things that you find difficult about writing online? And let's pause a second. I know this is going to be recorded as well, but do we have some comments coming in? See if I can get some here. I like to have a different voice. Kim might have had to step away. Oh, here we go. Let me do this. And I apologize to everyone if I accidentally cause us to go offline.
Oh,
Sometimes
so
I hit the chat thing. Are we having any comments about this question about what is one thing you find difficult about writing online, Kim?
let's see. Um, I see different platforms, goals, and other staff members telling you what to say from
Uh-huh.
Sarah. And then from Amy Marie, we have making sure the content is valuable to the readers.
Very good. Very good. And I think those all have to do with planning a little bit. And yes, I would say writing by committee, it's almost an oxymoron in my mind. Is that at some point someone has to make the final decision about what's right or not. And it's great to get input. And I use my husband, I use friends who I can tap online and say, I want to write this. Would you look at this and what you think, which is good. But at some point, who's the person who makes the final decision? I think that's important. And, I would say that it's analyzing things to see what you like in other people's writings. Like I tell people, if there's folks that you follow who you consistently like what they write, kind of do that little analysis, contrast and compare. What's one thing about their writing that you like? Pretend it's an English class assignment and you're having to analyze someone's writing. What do you like? Like there's a lady I know named Sonia who's a library director in New England, and she also is part of a riding stable, horses, and they do a lot of work with children with cognitive and physical challenges. So they raise horses. She's rescued a couple of Mustangs, which I think is like way cool. And everything she writes about every day is a story about the children and the horses. And she writes briefly, but with great physical detail, and everything she writes is kind and compassionate. So when I'm looking for something feel good, I look for what Sonia has posted that day. I want to be that Sonia sometimes in other people's lives as well. Very good. Very good. Let's see here. So again, start with an outline. Now, I have to say, I did a lot of research about mountain ranges in Nebraska, was not successful. Um, this is Catalina Island. It's not Nebraska, in case you get all or even Iowa, in case you got all excited and thought I found some mountain ranges in the Midwest. Nope, I didn't. So again, a specific target audience and a well-defined goal. Okay. So when somebody comes to me and they have a professional piece to put together, for example, they are trying to find funding for a project, right? They have a business or they're grant writing for a nonprofit foundation or something, and they are writing a piece and their goal is to get money. And I say, well, who's your audience? And they say, everybody. Everybody, I want everyone in the world to know how wonderful we are. No, no. We develop an avatar. The avatar for our business is Madge. Madge is 45 years old. She lives about 30 miles west of Omaha, as it happens. She works on a family ranch, and in her spare time, she's the director of their little hometown library. Doesn't have a college degree, but is wicked smart and wants practical information. So she's not stupid. She has a good vocabulary and she wants something that's practical that she can use immediately. That's the main audience for pattern research's work. A person I've made up with certain characteristics that help me decide how I'm going to write for them. I ask them what's their goal and what's the reason for writing this particular thing at this particular time. Also, spend a lot of time with people about priorities. Someone says, I have 15 things I need to accomplish. And I say, great, give me the top three. Because those top three things in order, one, two, three, may be all the reader has time for. And one truth about most online things that, except people like my husband, who reads voraciously everything all the time, none of us have enough time to read as much as we want. So people are going to skim, they're going to read the first couple of paragraphs first, and then maybe not read the rest of what you wrote. So you have to think about what your priorities are. And we're going to talk more about this in a minute. Really craft words. I would say the best training I received to write online was being a poet, because you might have 100 words and every one of those words better work really, really well in the situation at hand. That actually helped me better become a better radio news writer was first and foremost learning how to write something very engaging in 100 words. And then the other part of it is, why did you use that word? Were you thinking when you use that word? So those are some of the annoying questions I sometimes ask my clients about their writing. So what do pros do? What do people who are professional writers do? And I would include in that people like newspaper reporters, for example, you know, good journalists who work for major dailies on a deadline, people who are published authors, particularly in nonfiction, people who write and document manuals for repairing computers and everything. Well, even if they're writing a short piece, they might outline what they do. An outline might mean simply 3 sentences to say here in bullets. Don't worry about grammar. I'm not the grammar police, but writing like, what's the first thought? What's the second thought? What's the third thought? Everybody reads things out loud. And if you're working in isolation and you don't have someone that you can easily bounce things off of, read everything out loud. It's a very good way to catch mistakes you make in terms of everyday grammar, spelling mistakes, and your brain, the part of your brain that's listening, is more likely to tell you, Pat, that doesn't make any sense. Why did you write it that way? And what an outline does too, even if it's 3 bullets on a page or 3 bullets on an index card or on your screen, it keeps you from doing what we call project creep. And I had a amazing mentor named Elise Smith, who premier woman in instructional design, was doing it practically before anyone else on the planet. And she said what she thought was amusing and frustrating is how many people would be given an assignment to put together an online class. And by the time they turned in the class, things that what they wrote about had nothing to do with what the original idea was, that somehow the curriculum had strayed off to 100 different ideas, but it wasn't the idea that they had basically been commissioned to do. I've noticed that myself. I've done it twice. It was very embarrassing. So an outline helps prevent that kind of project creep. And yes, they can change where you say, oh, you know what, this is actually about this and not that, but it's conscious rather than unconscious. And even today, even sitting in front of my wonderful computer, and I've been practically living on a computer in terms of my work since 1984, nonetheless, I have stacks of colored index cards. And when something is important, it's that writing things down by hand, even with the best computer tools, is something that helps me. But we have to also remember that the purpose is not to give you a perfect outline. I know people who are obsessive compulsive in their desire to be perfect, and then they spend all their time doing the perfect outline. That's why I say 3 to 5 hastily written bullets are, in my mind, adequate to help you with an outline as long as they're prioritized and that they really do give the focus of what you're trying to say. So here's something that we would do if you and I were working together on a project. If I would look at what you intended to post, would I know what the 3 to 5 main points are? And it's an interesting exercise when you have a group of people in a writing class and you have them switch papers, and then the person sitting next to you has to figure out what were you actually trying to say. And some things are so well organized. It's like number one, number two, number three. It's terrific. And some people say, you know what? This was very fun, creative writing, but at the end of the day, I have no idea what they were trying to tell me. And if you're doing just fun, creative writing, it doesn't matter. If you have a purpose, it does matter. So that's a way, hand it to an intelligent member of your family and say, can you tell what the 3 to 5 main points I have? And here's a red pen. I'll print out a copy, or we can do this online and you can tell me. Not. Now, it's not just about necessarily job related to be work related, if that makes sense. You want people to remember you fondly. You want people to trust you and improve your credibility so that your online persona is that person people want to hang out with. And you have that extra, well, so and so said it. Just even this morning, my husband was telling me about a new writer he found that's kind of part of his world. And he said, boy, the person is very credible because they have live links to credible information supporting their point of view. And they're very specific in what they say and very clear with very little jargon. I mean, he actually said all of these things. This is the kind of geeky stuff we talk about in our house about why he liked this new person. That how you write demonstrates your competence and your knowledge in an area, simply because you know the details, you've had the experience, that you are always someone who shares information accurately, that you always research your posts to make sure that you're not sending fake news, false news, uh, news that is skewed so much, or things that have basically been thrown out years ago. Isn't it embarrassing when you see a friend of yours post online a meme or some breaking news that basically was discredited 20 years ago? That just happened to me last week. And if you are someone who has a cause, if you are trying to raise money for something, building financial and political support, because, well, if it's you asking, then definitely I'm going to say yes. So this is something to think about. A lot of people, when they hear outline, they roll their eyes and they think, oh, we had to do outlines for term papers in high school and it was so stupid and I hated it. I'm talking about something much simpler. But what doing an outline does, I think, is it makes you more um, self-reflecting. You're self-reflecting more about what you're writing and why you're writing it. It puts a pause button on your writing, which I think is so important in this sort of instant gratification that we have with online writing. Like you can write anything and you know a billion people potentially could read it instantly. It's kind of addictive, isn't it? So this is a different way of thinking about your writing. So it'd be interesting, and people obviously can email me later about if you had an outline where you were really thinking about your priorities and what the concrete goals, would that change the way you were writing online if you added a pragmatic pause button to your writing? That would be something interesting to think about. So then we have to know your audience's style. Well, um, wonderful woman, again, an old mentor of mine named Kay. In the 1970s and 1980s, she was a very well-known national writer who specialized in writing investigative journalistic pieces for magazines like Cosmopolitan and Redbook, which actually posted long pieces and paid people really good money to do different kinds of investigations about things, right? It was pretty cool. And she received a contract to write an article on women who murder. This was like decades ago for Cosmopolitan magazine. Kay's a great writer. She's written books, did different stuff. So she wrote the first draft, after months of research, submitted it to her editor, and her editor said, I need this a little perky. And Kay was like, perky. She was thinking other things. They said, yeah, this is Cosmopolitan, has to be perky. So she tried two more times, much to both her frustration and the frustration of her editor, saying, you're not getting it, Kay. We need perky. So what Kay did, which she admitted she should have done in the beginning, she went to her local library, picked up the last 12 issues of Cosmopolitan, read all 12 issues, like binged read, right? Going through reading every written article and stuff. And when she had that in her brain, she sat down and did another draft and nailed it. And she said, never again am I going to take a contract to write a perky article about women who kill. Well, when you're a professional writer, you're always thinking about the style of the audience you're trying to communicate with. We go back to demographics, and when somebody hires someone like me for something, and by the way, I think a lot about this online because the better I am online about learning about the different platforms, the better I am first of all, of knowing who tends to hang out there, and second, of all the people who are there who I want to engage. And this is all the stuff that we learn in marketing school about age and level of education and where do they live and what do they do for a living. And in the same way we invented Madge, when you're thinking about your writing, if you're on a generalized platform, it's not a listserv to a particular audience. It's not an instruction. You're not doing an instructional design for a specific class. Then you really have to think, who are you for? Who is that prime target? Which doesn't mean you're not communicating with everyone else, but I don't teach academic classes. I teach pragmatic, what they call professional education classes. I don't teach for people who are looking for something at the level of a PhD that you have to, have 3 higher degrees from higher ed. I try to write for people who have some life experience in the workplace, who probably have a high school degree and are actively working. So going through this is what marketing companies ask people, and it's something that writers should be good about as well, so that in this great morass that we have online, you can focus on the audience you want to be good at. You also have to think about their point of view, being able to put yourself in the shoes of the person you're writing for and see, hear, and understand the world from their point of view. What is it that they care about? What's important to them? Their priorities, their deadlines, their world. Are they people who need a lot of detail versus big picture? And the only way you get to know that after a while is experimenting and seeing what kind of feedback that you get from people. There's not a perfect formula, but I really want you to be aware of who you're writing for and why you are doing that kind of writing. So some of the questions I ask myself, and I ask if I'm hired by someone to do something, or in looking at what the conversation is about, should it be formal or informal? Humorous, serious, technical, vernacular, official. If there's legal issues, boy, particularly if you're doing this on behalf of your workplace, that's something very important, because one of the pros and cons of writing online is how quickly things go viral, and mistakes go viral faster. If you mess up, people are going to hear about it faster than if you're just doing your job. So we always have to be really, really careful about what needs a literal legal review before we post. I know it's annoying sometimes, and you feel that your rights to say whatever you want, whenever you want, are being violated somehow. But the practicality is you could write things that really screw things up, and it's really easy to do, easy to do. And is there an action deadline? Meaning, are you sending something online to a group of people that have to take action quickly? Right now, with all the fires going on in Colorado, lot of news things are going out online, and I like to monitor the police departments, the fire departments, the emergency folks, the federal agencies, and so on. I find their information obviously is a lot more accurate than the media about what's going on, and they have generally such a pragmatic, well written, concise way of saying, here's the facts, man, that you need to know, and this is what you have to do in this period of time, right? Um, there's very little, sometimes they use too many acronyms, but there's very little jargon, and everything's direct, and they tell you right away what you need to do and how you do it. They're one of my gold standards for great online writing. Here's another exercise we do. And by the way, the way that we do this exercise is when I'm doing a conference of some kind and people are going to be there for more than a couple of days, I give them TV commercial homework. And the TV commercial homework is that they watch commercial, on TV, on cable or whatever. They watch the commercials, and then they have to figure out who the target audience was for the commercial using that demographic information before. And they said that once they get that mindset, They say, "Oh, wow, I know who this is for. This is for people from this age range, probably men rather than women, probably of this socioeconomic status and so on." And it may ruin commercials for you the rest of your life, but it's a way of understanding who someone is writing for. And I get a little exasperated sometimes with someone's writing. I have to admit that. And sometimes I think they're just writing for other idiots. There's really no substance here. It's not even funny, right? Maybe they're bored, right? Maybe they're recovering from, God help them, a serious illness, and this is what's entertaining them. But we all have to be thinking about this. You know, who is this written for? And I write for people who are kind, who are thoughtful, who are engaged in life, who want to do better, right? Who have a sense of humor about themselves, who want to have fun and want to focus on positive things. That's who I write for. That's who I don't know who you write for, but that's who I write for. So even when we're talking about all the stuff we have to do, um, and how fast things are, we want to talk a little bit about editing. And I'm I'm not going to excuse myself and say, oh, it's because the dog ate my homework. But I will say that sometimes I write too quickly and I slip, and I have to look back at what I've written and I do edit it because I've misspelled a word or made some horrendous grammar mistake or have done something wrong, in my opinion. So you can't re edit on all platforms. Sometimes you have to literally start from scratch, erase, and redo it. But what I'm talking about is particularly if you're writing online and you're writing something longer, again, for a class or something that's more than 10 words on a post. And when you're writing, when you're a professional writer, you know that you have to leave time for editing, re-editing, walking away, coming back, time to do research about a fact or a figure. I would say for the writing I do online, when it's that serious kind of writing, I spend at least half the time researching before I write to make sure that the facts that I'm relying on, even if it's just my opinion or interpretation of the facts, are correct and up to date. And that, if possible, to find a good link that I can say, this is what I'm talking about there. That's 50% of my time is in research and preparation before I simply write. And I can write really fast. And again, it's just the practice of writing on deadline for various places as well. So Carl Jung, who was this wonderful man who was my first and best poetry teacher, and sadly passed away a couple years ago in Wisconsin. This is what he taught me in the first class I took from him. Everything is a draft. Everything can be better, because I find a lot of people don't want to write because they're afraid that what they write isn't perfect. Now, again, we're warning you that if you make a lot of mistakes, it goes viral and it's really hard to take it back. But on the other hand, you can write in small pieces and it makes it easier to fix things. So thinking about this means that there is always room for improvement, and everything you do has the potential to evolve and become better. So when you're talking about online editing, and these are some old school techniques that I think really work pretty well. In fact, I just used this the other day for an online class, and this is how I prepared the material. I started at the end of the document and then I moved forward, right? And sometimes it's reading sentence by sentence, sometimes paragraph by paragraph. And when you have a longer piece like a book, for example, and this is another thing I've helped edit, I would say that 90% of the mistakes that are in a book, typos and so on, occur in the last fourth of the book, simply because people are focusing most of their attention on the front of the book. So what we're trying to say is we start at the end, and it makes you look at things with fresh eyes and you're not tired and whatever. So starting from the end works really well. Eliminate the introduction. There's a thing called burying the lead. And burying the lead is that you almost are coy about telling people what it is that you're writing about. Or you have this big, long, elaborate introduction. I have been known to write stories, short stories, and even let's call them novellas, not novels, where I had an idea for the story and I started writing. And by the time I was done, you had to wait till chapter 4 to figure out what the heck the story was about because I get so entranced with description and philosophical insights and asides and things, as a storyteller, that it's like, oh, yeah, I forgot this is what the story was supposed to be about. Some people like my writing because of that. Some people find it really obnoxious and don't like my writing. It's a style issue. I have fun with it. But when I'm trying to write something for a purpose, why aren't you telling people what you want in that first sentence or that first paragraph? And I would say that in the work I do helping people with their writing, this is up there in one of the top 2 or 3 mistakes I see people making. Like, why do you have that extra sentence there? Why do you have that extra paragraph there? I find because I edit a lot of the work that my husband does in working with business startups. And I'm one of the people who will look over a proposal because they're looking for money. And most of the time, I'm there with my big red pen online, literally crossing out the first 3 paragraphs of the proposal, saying it's not till we get to paragraph 4 they're actually talking what they need. Reading it out loud, as I said before. And, grammar is fluid. I have a mentor, another person, Kathy is her name. Kathy is someone who is an editor's editor, and she, for many years, has been somebody that people who publish books go to and send their books, even major publishers, to have it polished, that last bit of copy editing. She's remarkable. Her husband told me once that she actually goes to sleep excuse me, reading different editions of the Chicago Style Manual, which for many writers is their Bible, and she can actually tell you the difference between what edition, the 8th and the 9th editions say about commas or something like that. She's extraordinary. And I have sat in meetings with her when she was part of a team to edit one of my books where people were arguing about stuff I couldn't even believe. Well, she was the final authority, right? People would argue, have a great deal of fun arguing about obscure rules of grammar, and she would be the final person. But she was very much that grammar is a historical construct that is constantly changing and growing. It's not like the rules of physics. It's not biblical precept, right? She's not one of those grammar police people, but I asked her, I said, I can't just have you move into the spare bedroom and live with me for the rest of my life to check whether something is correct or not. And she said, you know what? If you're not sure if it's correct, simply stay consistent within the document, how you're doing certain things. And she said, to me, abstract correctness is trumped by consistency every time because things are so rapidly evolving in grammar that things that you thought were good or bad 20 years ago, it's different now. It's an ecology, and again, it's evolving, or some people say it's devolving. That's silly because they simply don't know the history of languages, particularly languages like English, which are like giant sponges taking in and integrating so many different ideas. So find a style sheet, find a book on grammar. We have some suggestions in a couple of minutes that give you something to work on and go by there. Okay. That's you don't have to worry about the grammar police that much. Okay. Um, make sure again, and these are things that happen online more than they happen in the written word, researching to make sure that what you're saying is correct, always checking for yourself whether a source is credible or not. Something was just published among some family members of mine who are all educated, smart people and very good people. And one of my cousins published something she posted from another site and it raised a couple of flags and I checked and I found out it wasn't true. And when I do that, I just post the link without comment. And her sister said, I also saw that link and I was going to post it as well, repost it as well, because I trusted the person who posted it originally, and I assumed she checked it. Wrong. And I don't care if it's something my husband has posted, I'm going to check before I repost it as well. I also look for primary sources. So if somebody says this is what the Center for Disease Control say, well, guess what? I go to their site and look at the context and say, did indeed they post it, and have they refuted it since then, or did it change? Or, sometimes finding out even what year something was posted isn't that easy online. And if there are experts I know in the world, human beings who really know their stuff, I will contact them and say, "Oh, I saw this thing online and it seems to be credible, but you've been in the field for 35 years. What do you think?" And they'll say, "Oh my gosh, this is the pros and cons of that, but this is my personal experience." And I find a lot of time when you talk to people who are really in the field doing something, they go, "Nah." Right? They may think they're accurate, but I would be a little careful about that. You want to make sure you don't make silly mistakes in terms of dates and names and money issues. And somebody just sent my husband something a day or two ago where they claimed that 170,000 people were hurt by something. 170,000. So the second my husband told me that, I'm online, type, 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 type. And I said, no, sweetheart, it was 17,000, at least from these 7 sources. And he said, yeah, I guess that sounds better. But I'm so glad that I caught him before he published the 170,000 numbers, and that all this kind of detail is taken care of well. And what we have to be careful about is what I call the virtual shorthand. Cliches, all those snarky comments that we do, limited words, vague words, jargons, and not having stories or examples. When I try to practice this, I'm not perfect, but when I'm using a particular abstract term, like I use the word respect, I'll say by which I mean, and then give a concrete example. So I tack that by which I mean onto a lot of stuff that I write online. Well, these are words that we use all the time, and I use them too. Raise my hand. Um, for each of these words, I bet you can find a better word. You can find a better word. And so it's always that thing in the written word of how can we engage people by using a word that's more attractive. And professional writers talk about this all the time, all the time. Now, this is my gift. I went through, double checked all of the links. These are some of the best sites for learning how to improve your writing online. First and foremost, a course from Purdue University, Online Writing Laboratory. It's free, it's awesome. Everybody should know about it and use it. The grammar book is terrific. The Chicago Manual of Style, which you have in a special place in your house with lit candles around it and so on. Merriam-Webster, which I was brainwashed by my writing and editor friends to say that in the United States, this is the dictionary of choice. The Fun with Words com, which is a way to increase your vocabulary. And you can now get Strunken White's writing book online for free at gutenberg.org. So anyway, I'm going to turn things back over to Kim, our audience, and see if we had any questions or comments that came in.
Thank you, Pat. That was excellent. Yeah, if any of our attendees have any questions for Pat, I haven't seen any so far throughout your webinar, but if you have anything, you are more than welcome to type those out now. We'll give it a minute or two to see if you have
Sure.
anything. Um,
And by the way, when I encounter grammar police who correct what I've done, there's a very easy way to deal with grammar police. Just agree with them. So I have a family member, not my husband, who's a grammar police person, and she's too ready to correct people's details of their writing in public. And when she does that to me, I say, you know what? You're probably right. And then we move on because she probably is right. Okay. I don't have to fight with her.
Michelle, yeah. So we will be, DoSpace will be emailing the PowerPoint, a PDF of this, of Pat's PowerPoint to you later this afternoon. So you will get a copy of this.
Terrific.
Anything? I'm not seeing any other questions, Pat. So I think we are good to finish up.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, Pat, for this very interesting webinar. We all really appreciate it. Thank you, attendees, for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn on online writing. Please check our calendar at dospace.org for all of our other webinars that we have planned for the rest of the week, or not just the rest of the week, but the rest of the month. We also have our November schedule up. And if you are interested in any of our past webinars, we have those at our YouTube, our DoSpace YouTube channel as well. So if you Google, if you go to YouTube and you search for DoSpace, you can see all of our past webinars, including several of Pat's. So thank you, everybody, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.